Hi, Joyce. It's Victoria. So, I hope this is recording. I will have to see when I'm done. But we're looking at a map of Yellowstone. And I just want to show you some things. So, when we stay in Yellowstone, we stay here at Canyon. And this loop here, I'm going to call that the lower loop, and that's what I'm going to talk about first. So we stay here because it used to be the most affordable place, not necessarily for any other reason. But I know they've upgraded all of their lodging, so I'm just going to start there as reference. So right outside of Canyon, you have this Hayden Valley area with all the lakes. This is where, in Hayden Valley, this is where we get all those buffalo photos of the buffaloes crossing the river, and we've seen beavers there. It's just a lovely stretch of road to drive. There's not really any hiking trails or stops, and the hikes here are really not worth it, but you're going to see a lot of buffalo and maybe some beavers in here. Down in this area, sometimes we see some bears, black bears. Now, this fishing bridge, it's really kind of cool. If you go and park there and you take their little hike, Erin one year got pictures of the fish. Honey, what is it called when the fish are jumping upstream? When they're spawning. So they were spawning and they were all jumping upstream. And then they have some really cool birds that hang out there. The pelicans were awesome. Downside is if you get there and it's not dusk or dawn, you probably won't see that because they're not so active in the high heat. But then at dusk and dawn, you also get the mosquitoes. So if you're going to go see Fishing Bridge, make sure you take your bug repellent. Okay. So around here, Lake Village and Bay Bridge, there's some really nice picnic areas. West Thumb has some great hiking. There's a picnic area here in West Thumb that we liked. We even saw a bear there. Lots of bears, actually. West Thumb Geyser Basin. That's a really nice walk. So on our first, it takes about a day to do this stretch right here and the walks. And we don't really go this way. It's just very time consuming. So we would do this in one day. Then the next day, we would go this way towards Norris. And Norris has the paint pots, which are amazing if it's moist. If you're getting water, the paint pots are more active. If it's hot and dry, not so active. Then there's Gibbon Falls, which is pretty. Firehole Canyon. Then the drive, the paint pots, the geyser basins. But right here is the geyser basin, the biscuit basin, the black sand basin. Those are super cool. You should definitely take time to see some of those. So this stretch here can take forever in hiking and visiting. I know a lot of people go straight for Old Faithful. But actually, all of these paint pots and everything you see before Old Faithful, I feel are more exciting. Old Faithful, you sit there, it's usually about 45 minutes late, and then you're like, oh, that's anticlimactic. And by the time you get there and find a parking, and you go and you watch it and you want to go see the other hikes, you have to go find food, and there's a lot of people. So if you go in from this end, and I don't know where you're going to park your RV, Lake Village might be an interesting place, but Old Faithful is like a day because of the parking situation and if you go hiking. Otherwise, you could do Old Faithful and this right here, this hiking areas. I would not do hiking on any trail that's out in the woods because that's where you run into bear trouble. But the hiking and the tour, the ones that they lay out for you, those are super cool. Okay, so now I'm going to move my little hand here. Let's see here. I've talked about, this Craig's Pass not really that interesting. I mean, we've done it a couple of times, but it's kind of anticlimactic. Upper Geyser Basin, the paint pots. Norris is amazing. Norris is right here. Let me go back. Okay, right here. Norris Geyser Basin, love that one. Obsidian Cliff is pretty cool. You have never seen a giant cliff of obsidian. Like when the volcano explodes, it creates like a glass-like rock that's obsidian. Well, here the entire cliff is coated in it. If you don't have a whole lot of time, that's something you could skip. But it is kind of cool, geologically speaking, because I'm a dork like that. Okay. So now I'm going to take you from Canyon, and now we're going to talk about the upper loop. So this is the upper loop right here. So this is the upper loop. And by the way, every single one of these places is like 30 minutes apart in driving. So even though the loops look relatively close together, they're not. Okay, so here's Canyon. Here's the upper loop right here. Observation Peak is very cool. Coming up here down the road, this is just a nice scenic tour. Right here is where you want to spend your time. Tower Roosevelt area. So this I sent you links on. This is the Bermuda Triangle in this area right here. So this is where you're going to see a lot of the bears, a lot of the wildlife. The petrified tree is up there. Roosevelt Lodge is amazing. If they're doing the cookout, the stagecoach ride, the horseback ride, we've done all of those. The cookout is by far the bomb.com. And it is amazing. Then, if you have time, this drive right here from Roosevelt out this way, because you have to go out and then you have to come back because you don't want to leave the park yet. But this stretch of area right here in the Lamar Valley, you see moose, you see animals, but go early so you can see the sunrise there. Oh my gosh, it is just amazing. Some of the most beautiful area I've ever seen. Yeah, I would not pass up that area. Okay. Now going back to Lamar, coming up this way, Petrified Tree, and then all the way up here to Mammoth Hot Springs. Again, this is a full day, Mammoth Hot Springs. This is a pretty long drive, by the way, and especially if you take stops to go visit. Mammoth Hot Springs is one of the coolest places, but again, it depends on the water. It's the Hot Springs Terraces. So it depends on the water. Now here's a little tip for you, and you're going to see lots and lots of parking down here by the visitor center. But if you okay, so the hike up Mammoth Hot Springs is all uphill the entire way, and then there's a quick decline. Me and Mom and all of us figured out that if Dad just dropped us up at the top, which is kind of funny, it's cheating. There's a few parking spots up top. You can actually hike down the whole way instead of up, and then you get to see more because you're going opposite of traffic. But if you guys want some good hiking, like some rigorous hiking, it's not a steep incline, but it's a steady up. So this is a really good hike. And none of these areas are like, oh, we're going to go on a trail and go hiking. This is like you go on the paths that they mark for you. So yeah, that's cool. But I would not recommend you go this way back down here. So Mammoth Springs back to Roosevelt. So this area right in here, Obsidian Cliffs is the most interesting thing, but the rest of this is just too much. Like there's nothing interesting, no hikes, no stops. So there it is. There's my rundown of the park. Definitely take your time. stop and see the animals. Watch the other videos that I've given you because there's some tips in there. But that's my map recommendation. If there's any place on this map you have specific questions about, just text me.